In the landscape of contemporary migration, especially at the U.S. Mexico border, devotion to the Virgin of Guadalupe, a form of the Virgin Mary, stands out as more than religious tradition. It's a transnational expression of resilience, a living theology that's woven into the journey of displacement. Migrants don't simply believe in Guadalupe, they walk with her, they invoke her, and they recreate sacred space in her name. Today, I present research that explores how migrant devotional practices centered on the Virgin of Guadalupe foster resilience, identity, and communal belonging across borders. My claim is this, that through ritual practice, testimonies, and religious symbolism, Guadalupe becomes a spiritual anchor and a cultural force among Mexican and Latin American migrants, reshaping not only how people survive migration, but how they understand themselves in the process. Much has been written about historical and theological significance of Guadalupe within Mexican Catholicism, but far less scholarship has examined her role in sustaining migrant communities across transnational contexts. Scholars like Nicole Flores have identified Guadalupe's power in civic life, often focusing on public-facing activism and visual iconography. My project builds on that by asking what happens in the shelters, the deserts, the detention centers, spaces far removed from formal civic platforms, where devotion is embodied in quiet desperation. To understand how devotion operates in transit, I begin with the foundational narrative, the Nican Mopo'ua. This is an early indigenous account of the Guadalupe apparition. This story has theological and emotional significance for migrants. In it, Juan Diego, a poor indigenous man, faces disbelief and rejection when he delivers the Virgin Mary's message. His experience mirrors the feelings of migrants today: invisibility, marginalization, and a struggle for dignity. But more than historical resonance, the Nican Mopo'ua provides language for divine accompaniment. Guadalupe tells Juan Diego, "Am I not here who am your mother?" That maternal assurance isn't just something that's theological. For many migrants, it is a prayer of survival. It's a line that's repeated in the desert, whispered in prayer circles, clutched in the form of holy cards. One of the striking examples in my research was the way migrants create sacred space in motion. Guadalupe isn't just venerated in churches, she's found on border fences, in backpacks, and shelters. In places like Tenosique and Tijuana, there are examples of altars, often made of stones, candles, laminated images that are dedicated to the Virgin. These are acts of faith, of spatial resistance. There's a project at the U.S. Mexico border wall, La Tapiz Fronteriza, where Guadalupe's image is literally woven into the wall, revealing how the devotion transforms political boundaries into spaces of prayer. One researcher has documented migrants leaving prayers, rosaries, even water bottles at these altars. Guadalupe's presence literally sanctifying sites of danger and contestation. In interviews and ethnographic studies, migrants describe their faith as something that sustains, not drives their journey. A Guatemalan asylum seeker interviewed by El Universal said she prayed to Guadalupe before crossing because she, Guadalupe, knows the path. She walks with us. Faith is not abstract to these folks. It is an everyday act of endurance. Scholars like Valentina Napolitano and Miguel Diaz emphasize that these expressions of faith are not left behind in the homeland. They're adapted, they're recontextualized for the needs of the time, becoming tools for identity in the in-between spaces of migration. And the devotion moves, shifts, and makes room for new forms of belonging. Guadalupe's symbolism moves from personal comfort to public power. In sanctuary churches, her image is displayed beside legal notices protecting undocumented families. Migrant rights protests feature her banner. She isn't just a saint, she's a maternal figure of resistance, and she cannot be deported. As Deidre Cannell writes, Guadalupe walks, not just with individuals, but through communities, advocating for dignity and rights. And that convergence of faith and action reveals how spiritual practices contribute to political identity, not as an institutional strategy, but as an organic, community-formed expression of resistance. The Virgin of Guadalupe is not a mere relic of Mexican Catholic identity, but in borderlands and in migrant communities, she is a dynamic force of resilience, of solidarity, and transnational belonging. With rituals, altars, and testimonies, migrants reimagine their faith in real time, and they transform border crossings into a sacred journey, making visible a spirituality that's rooted in survival. Now, where there's increasing hostility towards migrants, Guadalupe can't promise easy answers, but she offers something radical: the persistent maternal assurance that God is present in the journey, even in exile.